Hey guys, welcome back to the Geography Academy. Remember, this video is just a small part of a much larger course that's available below if you just follow the links and instructions. Okay, we're on to part 2 of glacial systems and landscapes, and we're going to talk about the processes and landscapes here. You've got to know the characteristics first, so please go back and look at section 1 if you've skipped ahead to this section, just to make sure you've got everything in place and are prepared. We're just going to talk about a couple of processes. So mechanical weathering, for example, often is happening, especially in colder environments. It's less likely that chemical weathering is going to happen here, and less likely biological weathering is going to happen in a lot of these areas. So we see freeze thaw, water makes its way into cracks. It expands out about 9% when it's frozen, and this puts pressure on either side of the rock to open up the crack further. When it's further opened up, then the water can move even further down, and then it can occupy that area in which it can expand again once it's frozen. So this process just continues on, and then the cycle is going to cause rocks to be released. This can happen a lot in the low latitude areas, which means like in the mountain ranges that we're looking at there. Low latitude, high altitude glaciers around there, we're going to find lots of rockfall because of that on a daily basis. Whereas on the other side, when we see the north and south poles and we look at the Arctic and Antarctica, and we would see maybe huge seasonal shifts, like when spring comes around, the sun comes back, it's going to be a lot of thawing during those periods. We can see here a really good example of the way the peak has formed, and yeah, it's becoming more and more jagged because freeze-thaw weathering will be working all around the edges of each of the areas that are exposed on the arêtes, on the peak, and this creates then a very steep, sharp profile on this peak. So imagine that if this used to be a very different shape, it could have been sent out by erosion, and it could have been a more rounded top like that. So over time, water running through it and freeze-thaw weathering would have caused it to be eroded, whereas the initial steep slope here was probably maybe formed by a glacier. Probably maybe. Let's see. So nivation then is when freeze-thaw weathering is happening. Chemical weathering can also happen in places, and the ice is building up into an area. So what happens is a slope starts to accumulate snow and rock together, increases the weight, and slowly opens up a depression in an area. So this is the first kind of zone of accumulation, and from there it's going to build up and get much larger and then move under meltwater and continue to develop a hollow. So that is kind of the starting point there of a lot of our features. Now for ice movement processes, we see internal deformation. Now we talked about this in the previous one. The primary movement with cold base is then it's frozen to the bedrock, so we see that it's mainly moving internally, right? The external motion then is sort of happening more along the areas of the basal sliding. And this is going to happen then with glaciers that have meltwater along the bottom to lubricate it, to get it to move a little bit on the base too, as well as internally deforming as the heat is greater up there as well. So we can see then greater motion if it's also eroding and taking away part of the landscape underneath it as well, which increases that as well, and that is the subglacial bed deformation there. Okay, so these are the different types of sliding, and when you're talking about the landscapes where the features are being formed, it's good to reference back these types of sliding for both, so make sure you're good with both of them. Rotational flow and compressional flow. So rotational is like in the cirques, just kind of after the nivation, we start to see it then turning into cirques of ice. This will be a bit more rotational with a downwards pressure here in the greatest point, and with that accumulation then is also then forcing a push outwards, and that rotational will continue to move there. Compressional flow then when the glacier slows down, and this reduces the speed. So we could see that maybe in this area here, as the ice is moving up, it's probably going to slow down because now it's at the top before it starts to move again. So if we think about that with a much better diagram here, we can think about the rotational slumping at the bottom. We can think about the compression when suddenly we're going to get loads of big cracks, but also a bit of an uplift of the glacier itself suddenly in that area. Then it's on the way down again, And when it's on the way down again, it's going to open up cracks as well into it. So this creates areas then when we have a sudden decrease into what they call an ice fall. So this will lead huge fractures then as well. It thins out in that area, bigger fractures and crevasses open up, which is the deep crevasse there. We also see the Bergschrund then is building up at the back of it. So this is an area where we're going to have huge gaps between the back wall and the glacier as it's being pulled down. So this will create then the potential for big gaps and crevasses to appear as well. So here we have an example of this where we can see the Bergschrund is sort of breaking away on the edges here. There's like a little crack between the way where the ice meets the mountain, and that's the Bergschrund that's all around that area there. So we can see a very distinctive line in between there. So that's the first motion there as the downwards motion. This is a cirque here, for example. So we can see that moving around, and we can see the Bergschrund around the outside, and underneath we'll see, well, we can't see it here, but underneath you would be seeing a rotational slump like that. So this is kind of at the top point of the mountain. Here's a little kind of cirque as well starting too. This one not so much, it's more like part of a bigger glacier that's kind of moving around. But we can see then that there is probably a sudden decrease there, which is thinning out and extending the glacier down into this area, right, from higher up. So this would be higher up and coming down there. So that's a quick descent to create those crevasses and openings. On the other side then, so all of this is happening up at the top of the mountain, which would be up here. If we move further down the mountain, then we can see just at the end there's a big gap here, and this is where the glacier really starts to come down in a steep angle very quickly. So it thins out then and extends out these points. So this causes the cracks to open up on the top of the glacier, to deform it and to open up big crevasses there before it reaches the end on the way here. Okay, so those are the different ways that it moves and the different openings that can happen because of that. Now, if we're thinking about this as the processes, then there's other ones happening in the ice. We talked about how freeze-thaw weathering could be sending rocks down the mountain. So that could get caught down a crevasse in the Bergschrund, and then it could add to the ice. Could be taken down with it, or plucking could be happening as well to add sediment to the rock. So plucking is when the ice freezes on the bedrock, and then it's melting because of the friction. Then it's freezing around the rock. It pulls it away as it's part of the glacier now, and then it actually drags it down with it. So as it's doing that, it is causing very steep backs to the corrie here, and we'll continue that process then of making it a little bit more steep. So when we come back here, we can see this area now has already built up quite a steep area of land around it, and even at the backs here we can see like very vertical peak areas there. So that could have been from previous larger glaciers then that were higher up doing this exact same process. So the plucking starts to erode away the back wall and makes it steeper, and then the rock and the sediment that's brought with it reaches the bottom and is used as abrasion. So that's when the rocks are grinding along the bottom here, and that's going to deepen out that shape there quite a lot. So plucking and abrasion can happen throughout the glacier system, but at this stage we're just talking about up in a corrie. So a corrie is this area that's opened up